Hey guys, this is going to be an example of how to set up an extra NG for iX14 and a Spectrum AS3X safe receiver. So first thing you do after you create your new model, go into aircraft type, and generally an airplane that's 67 inches or larger is probably going to have two aileron servos, and you'll want to control them individually. So you're going to want two channels there. And it'll probably have dual elevator servos that you'll want to use a separate channel for each one to fine tune them to where they have exactly the same amount of throw up and down. So we've got dual elevator, one rudder. Now once you do that, your transmitter automatically assigns a channel to each servo. And in the case of mine, and it's not showing it, I've got to get out of here and go back and go to the model, short click that, long click that, and then click on the model and change this to 10 channels, and then long click the back arrow to get back to the main screen, and then go back in here to model setup and channel assign, and then long click. Now we can see that the NAs are the channels that the transmitter has assigned to the servos, and it assigned one of them to channel 9 and didn't use channel 5 or 7 or 8 or 10. Now this is not a problem if you have a 9 or 10 channel receiver, because you'll have a port for channel 9. But if you have a 8 channel receiver or a 6 channel receiver, that port or this channel is outside the number of ports that you have. So we go to port assignment, and here we can, originally what it said was it had left elevator, and channel 5 had gear. This is what it originally looked like. And so to get this left elevator on a port, we go to the gear channel, which isn't being used for anything, and we select left elevator. Now we don't need left elevator here, so we can inhibit it. So now we have got throttle, right aileron, right elevator, rudder, left elevator, and left aileron in the first 6 ports. So all we need is a 6 channel receiver to set this plane up, and then we're going to use channel 7 for the gyro to control its modes, turn the gyro on and off or put it in safe mode. And then I have channel 8 assigned as a gain channel. Now I renamed these channels in the servo setup. I'll show you that in a second. But we don't need channel 9 or 10. So you can do this with an 8 channel transmitter if that's all you had, or less. I mean, you could actually do it with a 6 channel transmitter if you didn't have a gyro to control. So that's channel assign. And let's go to model adjust, servo setup. And right here is where you can rename these channels, where it might help you remember what they do. I have already renamed these, but I do that to reduce the confusion, because if you go to the monitor screen you'll see that they're all labeled. And what you're going to want to do is plug your servos into the ports in this order. So throttle's port 1, right aileron's port 2, and so forth. And since these aren't used, I can hide these now. So we short click on the model, long click here, and then short click here, and then change this back to 8. And then long click to get back. So now we've hidden those two unused channels. So let's see, make sure I covered this. I think I did, but we'll go back. Switch C is assigned to channel 7. I'm going to use it to control the gyro. And channel 8 is assigned to the knob for variable gain. I don't often use variable gain, but I'm going to show it anyway. So that's pretty much all there. Dual rates and expo. So they're on switch B, and aileron, we have high rates and we have 3D rates. 3D, you might want to reduce the expo. Depends on your preference. And then elevator, I have low rates, high rates, and 3D rates. And then for the rudder, we have low rates, high rates, and 3D rates. So that's set up. Mixing, no mixers are used. You're probably going to want to use rudder into elevator and aileron for knife edge flight to straighten it out. So you'll have to turn that to on, unless you want to put it on a switch, which I never do. And then adjust these till the plane flies straight in knife edge with top rudder. So forward programming now to get into the gyro settings. Flight mode setup. You'll see that it doesn't show you channel 1 through 6. It only shows you the ones that are available. And you can see that I already have switch C assigned to channel 7. And I've already picked it here. And of course, since I named the channel, instead of saying aux2 or whatever, it actually says the name of the channel. And then switch C. So by doing the switch assignment in channel assign before you start setting up the receiver, the switches and knobs are already paired to the channel that you want. You don't have to change one of these and then change the second one and so forth. You can just click next and go on. So they're on switch C, and switch C is in position 0, which is up, and the gyro is turned off. Everything's inhibited. And then the middle position, AS3X is enabled. And then the bottom position, position 2, AS3X is on. It needs to be on if safe is on. And then I have self-level angle demand. If you don't want to use that, you can inhibit it. So now you only have AS3X there. And this isn't going to do anything if safe is turned off, this throttle to pitch mix. But I always use the low end in safe mode. So let's set this back. And this is typically the way I'll set one up. I'll have an off position, or at least beginners should do this. I don't turn a gyro off on my planes. But it's a good idea for beginners to gyros to have an off position so that they can get the plane up in the air with the gyro turned off, and then enable it at altitude to where if it's not set right, they can turn it back off. So I have an off position, an AS3X position in the middle, and then safe mode. And then we go back and we go to AS3X settings, and the gains, since the gyro is off in flight mode 1, it doesn't show anything. Middle position, flight mode 2, these are the defaults, 40, 50, and 60. And then the bottom position, which is my safe mode, 40, 50, and 60. Priority, 160 is fine. The priority determines where the gyro gain goes to 0 as you move the stick away from center. If you were in 100% travel and these were set to 100%, then the gyro gain would go to 0 when the stick hits the stop. But if you use low rates, these need to be set high enough that in low rates the gyro gain will go to 0. So with 160, your low rates could be set as low as 40%, and it would go to 0 right when the stick hits the stop. But I never turn my dual rates below 50 or 60%, so I use 150 here. You won't really notice the difference between 150 and 160 probably. But at any rate, leave these at 160 or set them to 150. And you have to flip the switch and check it in every flight mode. And then fixed adjustable. In the flight mode 1 position where the gyro is disabled, it doesn't show it to you because it's not used. The middle position, I've got them set to adjustable. You have to have a gain channel to get any gain on a gyro if it's set to adjustable. If you set these to fixed, you just go in there and you set it to the gain that you want, and you don't need the gain channel or the knob. And then in safe mode, flight mode 3, adjustable also. So that's only if you use a knob. If you don't use a knob and a gain channel, set these to fixed. Check it in every flight mode. And let's see. Safe settings. These only show up in the flight mode where safe is enabled. So in flight mode 2 and flight mode 1, they're hidden. The default gains are 35 for both of these. I generally turn the roll down 5 or 10% for the maiden flight, and I turn the pitch gain up to 45 or 50 so that I have enough elevator throw that I can rotate on takeoff and flare when I'm landing. So 30 and 50 or 30 and 45 would be good here for most any kind of airplane. Angle limits, yeah. Angle limits, this is bank angle, left and right. The faster the plane is, the higher these need to be set, or otherwise your plane's going to take 20 acres to turn around. So on an EDF, I set these to 85. On a medium speed airplane, I set them to about 65 or 70. And on a trainer, I would set them to like 40 or 45 degrees. And then pitch down 30 degrees is enough. And pitch up is 45 so that it can clear obstacles at the edge of the field if needed. On my EDFs, I will use 45 degrees down and 55 degrees up. These kind of depend on what kind of airplane, but 30 and 45 are a good start. And these are only when it's in safe mode. If you're in flight mode 2, which is AS3X, and flight mode 1, where the gyro is off, they don't show up. So they're only there in the flight mode that uses safe, or where safe is turned on. And the safe mode gains default to fixed, whereas the AS3X gains default to variable. And if you don't set up a gain channel, you will get no AS3X gain. And here, anytime you make a change to the servo direction, the sub trim, maybe the travel, and a few other things, you need to click Relearn Servo Settings, click Apply, click Complete. And that lets the transmitter tell the receiver how your channels are arranged and how they're set. So you must do Relearn Servo Settings occasionally or after any change in the transmitter orientation. That's simple. Set the model level, press continue, and then put it nose down and do it again. Or you can set it manually if you understand what this picture is showing you. It's easier just to do it with it level and then put it nose down and go click continue each time. Gain channel select. It's showing the channel name here. Because I named the channels, it shows the channel name. If I hadn't named the channels, it would show AUX2 and AUX3, AUX4, whatever. But naming the channels lets you know what the channel does. And do not enable variable gains for safe. It will, if you turn these down to 0, you won't have any control of the plane and neither will the gyro. So leave the safe gain set to inhibited. And panic mode, I don't use panic anymore. It's too hard to find the bind button for me. I just flip the switch for safe mode. Throttle to pitch, I always use the low throttle to pitch because when you throttle back, the plane needs to lower its nose. If this is set to 0, the plane's fuselage will stay parallel to the ground, and with the motor at idle or off, it's just going to get slower and could stall. So put 5 degrees nose down so that it will descend a little bit when you throttle back. I don't use the high throttle to pitch because I don't want my airplanes to climb at full throttle. So I set it to 0. One thing you need to do before you fly the plane is go into attitude trim and set the model on the ground level. If it's a tail dragger, you need to elevate the tail until the horizontal stabilizer is level with the ground. Try to put the airplane to where it is in the attitude it's going to be in when it's in level flight, and then click on this box here that says level model and capture attitude. And I have a test receiver sitting here on the table, and it set the roll to -1 and the pitch to 0. If your receiver is level in the roll axis, then this is going to be 0. But let the receiver capture these, and then if the pitch is 0 or whatever the pitch is, I would increase it by 5 to make sure the airplane climbs in safe mode, or at least doesn't descend in safe mode. So add 5 to whatever it captured, and you can probably leave the roll to whatever it captured if the plane is level left to right. And then when you fly the plane, you should never trim it in safe mode. You should always trim it with the gyro turned off or in AS3X mode. And then when you go into safe mode, if it doesn't fly level and if it wants to turn, you need to adjust the roll, uh, make it more positive to turn right, or straighten it up. If it's turning left, make it more positive. If it's turning to the left, or to the right, you need to make it more negative. And then the pitch, positive is up and negative is down. So adjust these until you get the plane flying level in safe mode after trimming it in AS3X mode. Fail safe. I have it fail safe to flight mode 3 because it's set up for safe. And you can make your airplane go into a turn when it fail safes if you have safe enabled. So that's that. Utilities, I don't use these. I don't have enough flight modes that I need to copy one to another. And I think that's pretty much it for that. And then you got the other settings menu where you can go in and mess with failsafe, but I don't recommend it. Just leave it to throttle, go to idle, and servos hold their position. If you leave this alone, that's how it's going to be. You can go in here and set your surfaces to a certain position if you want to, but I don't recommend it. And then you can bind the receiver if it's already bound. Frame rate is between the receiver and the servos. If you're running digital servos, then you want to set this to 11 milliseconds. If you're running analog servos, this needs to be set to 22 milliseconds. There's 22. I think that's the only. No, you've got 5.5 if you got faster servos and then inhibited. But with digital servos, set these to 11 milliseconds. If you have retracts, of course this plane doesn't, but if you were to have retracts, I would set them to 22 for the retract channel. And factory reset makes you start over. You have to set everything from scratch. It will turn your receiver into a non-gyro receiver that has to be completely set up. You can restore the settings from backup if you had saved them to backup, or if it's a bind and fly, you can bring them out of the backup memory. If you want to go back to the original setup of the receiver, if it came in a bind and fly airplane. Now on my planes, I put the receiver's flight modes on the same switch as the dual rates because I want AS3X in low rates, I want AS3X in high rates, and I want safe mode with high rates on position 2 of the B switch. Safe mode doesn't work correctly. The bank limits and pitch limits don't work correctly if the travel in the transmitter is reduced below 100%. Of course, the audio events, I go in here to switch change reports, and I've got switch H set for motor on and throttle cut. I don't want them to say motor on and off or throttle on and throttle cut. I want them to say two different things to, if it prevents confusion if they're two totally different phrases. And then your B switch for low rates, high rates, and 3D rates, or whatever you want it to say. And then switch C is set for gyro off. It's misspelled intentionally because the Android system, if you spell it Gyro, it won't say it correctly. So you have to fool it. You can put JYRO and it works, or GIRO and it says gyro, but with GYRO it says gyro or something. And then AS3X mode and then safe mode. timers. It's better to use the throttle out instead of the throttle stick. The transmitters, they all default to throttle stick, and your timer will run. If you raise the throttle stick, the timer will run with the throttle cut on, when really you probably don't want it to. So use throttle out here. And then timer alerts, I turn off the timer start, timer stop. It bugs me to hear that go beep, 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 or even worse to say it. And then I don't use the every minute countdown. I use 1 minute to go. The 1 minute to go warning, 30 seconds to go. I don't use the 20 seconds. I use the 10-second, and then I use the 10-to-1 countdown, and then expiration, it vibrates and says timer expired. And then every minute past the expiration, it'll tell me I'm 1 minute over, 2 minutes over, whatever. So that's how I set my timer. Anyway, that's pretty much it. The main thing about this type of plane is getting the channels arranged. See, since I hid 8 or 9 and 10, you don't see those. So anyway, you can do dual ailerons and dual elevators, rudder and throttle with a 6-channel receiver. And of course, the AS3X safe receivers can actually hear channel 7 through 20 on a 6-channel, and 9 through 20 on an 8-channel, and 11 through 20 on a 10-channel, 10 360 receiver. So you don't have to use a channel that has a port to control the gyro, because it can hear the channels above the ones that have servo ports assigned to them.